unfortunately, it's not usually realistic. A lot of times when you're first starting in the industry, you're going to be putting overtime in for certain things. Usually crunch mode, usually when the studio asks you to do it. What you do not want to do is put in what's typically called ghost hours, which is unpaid overtime. This is when you join a studio and you're going to start working, and then maybe the workday ends and you go, okay, you know what? I'm going to keep working here for another 4 or 5 hours, and I'm just going to finish this shot so that the shot's done when they come through. And then, haha, it's going to look better for me. It's like, I'm finishing my shots really quick. I'm making sure that I'm a good asset to the studio. That is one of the absolute worst things you can do. Not just for yourself, because you're getting unpaid overtime, but just for the animation industry as a whole. Ghost hours, unpaid overtime that is just done under the table where no one knows about it, ruins so many things. For you as an animator, the worst thing that it's going to do is it's going to set an unreal expectation of what people expect of your work. So let's say I am a director on a film, or I'm the animation supervisor. As I am putting my shots together, let's say we've got everyone here. Shrek, you're animating a shot. Aetha, Jay, Dano, John. I'm setting up all of your shots here, and I'm allotting every one of you a certain amount of time. Every one of you gets 5 hours. We're just going to go 5 hours. 5 hours to animate each shot. Okay. So you all come in and you present your shots, go, hey, here it is, my shot. You all finished it. But one of you didn't finish your shot in 5 hours and had to take more time to do it. 9 hours, let's say. For some reason, it was just a really complex shot. What that ends up doing is, as a director, I go, oh, wow, you all did it in 5 hours. Great. I know that this is your skill level and you can accomplish this amount of work in 5 hours easy. Let's give you more shots. And the more that happens, the more you're just going to get longer and longer shots with the exact same deadline. And you're going to have to put more ghost hours and more ghost hours and more ghost hours. Not only that, but as a director, it doesn't help me because I don't know how long it takes for shots to work now. I'm just putting arbitrary numbers and, oh, apparently all the shots are getting done. Man, I'm good at my job. Let's just keep putting these random numbers in and haha, I'm amazing. Whereas in reality, I'm over budgeting or under budgeting and everyone's like working overtime and having to stress out because I don't know how many hours it actually takes to finish a shot. So it's ruining the entire pipeline when we're doing these extra hours without people knowing about it. Now, there will be times when studios will ask you to do unpaid overtime, and they're gonna do the like, oh, well, if you're a good animator, a good employee, you're going to want to do the extra hours. And there's like this, you, as a good employee, you want to go over and above and beyond. That's what a good employee does. That's what's going to keep your job there. I hate that. I absolutely hate that. If they're going to expect you to work, you should expect them to pay. That's it. End of message. They are paying you to work. You are not there for fun. You are not there because you're friends with them. Even if you're working with your best friends, even if you're working at your dream studio, working on your favorite project ever, you are being paid to animate. That's the job. If you're animating without getting paid, they are not doing the job right. There is a give and take here. So, no, you do not accept that. Sometimes you have to. Like, this is one of those situations where you have a job, you can't afford losing your job, and they're gonna twist the knife and make you work for overtime, and that sucks, and you want to get out of there as fast as possible. Sometimes you cannot avoid it. But in a studio where you can avoid it, avoid it. It's just not worth it. And typically, there's going to be that incentive of like, well, if you work more now, Like, you're going to have more opportunities later. You could maybe make it director, and then as an animator, you think, wow, if I do more work now, I could make it into a supervising position or a lead position or something like that much sooner. In reality, a lot of studios go, we can push them around. We tell them to do something and they'll just go, how high? Tell them to jump, how high? Tell them to do that, sure. It doesn't make them want to promote you, it makes them want to use you. No. And yeah, exactly. Higher up positions is more work. So if they're already expecting you to do more work now, that higher position is going to come with a lot of chains and baggage and just even more work over top of what you're supposed to do. No. As much as you can, do the work that you're paid for, and then that's it. If they're going to expect more work from you, you get paid more. And this is the term, it was going around the internet for a while. It's quiet quitting. I don't know how many of you have ever heard of this term. So quiet quitting is this concept that employers were passing around, going that, well, if employees aren't like going above and beyond, if they're not pushing the envelope and being like the model employee, it is quiet quitting. They're just doing the bare minimum they possibly can, and they don't actually want to keep their job. They're just doing only what is required. Quiet quitting. No. What that is being a responsible adult and doing what you're paid for. And if they expect you to do more, then they should pay more. And if they're not, they're cheapskates. That's it. That's really it. As a job, you are paid to do 8 hours a day, let's say, 8 hours a day, and animate a certain amount of shots. As long as you're doing your 8 hours a day and you're doing the exact amount of shots that they ask you to do, that's all you need to do, and that's it, nothing more. Everything else is paid overtime. Exactly. Work should stay being just work. If they want you to spend more of your life, essentially that is what you're doing. This is the thing that really helped for me to understand this a lot more, because I was very guilty of trying to do more work for nothing, because I'm going to help people. I'm going to do more in my job and whatnot. And what really kind of brought it home for me is that what you are doing when you are getting paid, it is not just you being paid to animate. You are being paid to spend hours of your life, which is a finite amount. You only have so many hours in your life. And if you believe otherwise, you're going to have a very harsh realization a little later on in life. You have a certain amount of hours in your life, and then that's it. There's no more. You're not getting any extra. When you are working at a studio, you are being paid, or working anywhere, you are being paid to spend hours of your life at this work to do a certain amount of work, and then they pay you and you leave. So they are paying you for hours of your life, which when you say it like that is very bleak and depressing. But when you then think about it in those terms and they go, hey, can you spend 4 more hours here and just finish this up? That's 4 hours of my life I am never getting back, that I'm not going to be paid for, that I'm going to be away from my family, that I am doing something that you should be paying me for in the first place. Why? Why should I do that? No, I am not going to do that. Now, with that said, there are exceptions. For example, let's say I am working on a project for I'm volunteering to help on a project. Maybe it's like for a cancer run or something like that. Getting money for cancer. So I'm volunteering my time there. Sure. Maybe if I want, I could add more time into that because I'm volunteering, I'm helping out. Or like with teaching, I'd like to go overtime in teaching. For anyone who's been in my dailies, you know, typically the dailies are supposed to be 2 hours. Supposed to be 2 hours. Usually they're 4 to 6 hours, if not more. But I like to do that because to me, that's not work. That is helping people out. I am volunteering my time to make sure that people get as much as they can out of a program or whatnot. But when it comes to work, there is a limit, because that is a contract. They are obligated to pay me for my work. And if I am doing more work but not getting paid, why? Would it be fair to go, hey, I didn't do a full day of work today. I only did 2 hours. Could you just pay me for the whole day? Just because. Would the studio go, yeah, sure, we're Disney. We've got billions of dollars. We're not going to miss like $20 today or whatever it is. Well, let's say you're being paid. It's going to be a low. Well, actually, let's go high. You're being paid $50 an hour. It's not the highest. It's not the lowest. $50 an hour. You know, I'm not going to do the whole day of work. Could you just pay me for the extra 5 hours? That's $250 in a day that they can pay me. Yeah, exactly. $50 an hour. That's the dream. But that's $250. It's not much. 5 hours. And you could just go, hey, yeah, just give me that and I'll just go home. Okay. And then you have Disney or DreamWorks or any of these big studios, Netflix. They are multi-billion-dollar companies, not million, billion-dollar companies. $250 is a drop in the bucket. It's nothing to them. And they would go, no, you do your work and then we'll pay you, because they're a company. So why is it okay for it to go the other way, where they go, could you just spend 2 more hours here and just finish that shot or do this extra work? No. Why? You're a multi-billion-dollar company. Pay someone else to do it, or just pay me to do it. Like, no, it's, I'm sorry. I went on a whole tangent or rant there. I just hate that concept of the unpaid overtime, the quiet quitting. What a stupid concept. It is just people who don't understand how life works. And they just want their employees to do free work. No, employees should only be expected to do the work that they are paid for. Anything above that is like, bow down to them and thank them for being so helpful and give them a raise or give them a bonus or something, or tell them, hey, don't do that work. You're not being paid for it. I'll pay you to do it, or I'll get someone else to do it. That would be a good employee. Yeah, you don't want to give out free time. And again, there are exceptions. There are times where it is okay to give free time. It is okay to do extra work because it's a passion project. Let's say we're working with a bunch of friends and you're going to be releasing a game together. You're creating your own video game and you're not being paid for it. It's just a passion project. If they go, you know what? We need to just all crunch together here and put in a few more hours to get this game launched on time. Sure. Yeah, why not? It's a passion project. You're doing this for yourself. But when you are doing it just for whatever, just because the company wants you to do extra hours, no. And does Disney practice unpaid overtime? Not that I know of, at least not now. I was using Disney as an example just because it's a huge company, but it could be any company of any size. So yeah, for the most part, I think, or I know that from the animators that I know, Disney is really good at making sure that people are paid correctly. That actually, yeah, now that I think about it, one of the animators I know who work at Disney, they were actually doing overtime. And one of the employees, their supervisor in Disney, came by, went to their desk and went, "Get out." And they went, "No, I'm just going to finish this shot. I'm just going to get it done. Don't worry. I'm not going to get paid for it. I'm just going to finish it." And they just went, "No, get out, have a life, enjoy your day, come back and we're going to pay you for your work." So at least the people I know at Disney, they're treated very well. So yeah, I forgot about that story. I think someone at DreamWorks had the exact same thing happen, where they were working overtime at DreamWorks and one of their supervisors came in and went, didn't your shift like finish a while back? And he went, yeah, I'm just trying to get this shot done. And they went, okay, yeah, you're done. And they just wheeled the chair back. So, like the person is sitting on the chair, and they just grabbed the chair and wheeled the chair back as the guy's like trying to finish working, and just no, oh, and you're done. Have a good day. Just go out, see your family, see you tomorrow. And do they fire you for overtime? Not that I know of, but you can get reprimanded for it. Because like I said, it can really hinder a production. The more people do overtime, especially unpaid overtime and just ghost hours where they do extra work for no pay and without anyone knowing it, it really screws up everyone in the production. It screws up all the directors, all the supervisors. It makes it impossible to track how many hours this is going to take. It makes it so that other animators are going to hate you because it looks like you're doing so much work in the exact same amount that they are, but now they're behind so that they have to now catch up. It's just bad. No unpaid overtime. You are probably going to get reprimanded. If it's a good studio, they're going to reprimand you. So yeah, overtime is essentially a no-no, exactly, unless they pay you for it. And as long as they're paying for you to do the overtime, that's good. And ideally it should be overtime hours, which is your regular wage plus a certain amount. It's not just continual hours. So yeah, you do your best with the hours given. If you don't have enough time, you let your directors know, and they will either reschedule things, or if they find that you're just constantly not meeting the deadlines, they might put you onto simpler projects or projects that you can work more quickly at. Yeah, and overtime with your family. Like, take those 4 hours that you would have spent at the studio, take 4 hours to spend with your friends and your family instead. That's such a much more worthwhile overtime. It's just so much more fun. So if you do too much work, or you're going to get beaten up by your coworkers, you're not going to get beaten up, but they are not going to like you. I know this as a fact of people that I know who have done ghost hours, and a lot of ghost hours. The other people at the studio hated them, absolutely hated them. And not in the, like, I hate you as a person, but as a coworker, they couldn't wait to not have them in the production anymore, because it made everyone else look bad, and everyone else's deadlines got shorter because this one person kept putting ghost hours in. And it's like, the studio went, oh, well, this guy can animate this shot in 5 hours. Why can't all of you? We're shortening the deadlines. Why are you all wasting time? So everyone's deadlines got shortened because one person kept putting in ghost hours. And now not only that, they had to put in more ghost hours to keep up the, like, look how fast I can animate. And now they're just working with, like, not getting paid at all because they're putting so many ghost hours in. Everyone else has a shorter deadline. It just sucks. It just absolutely sucks. So yeah, do not do ghost hours ever, 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 ever. I guess ghost hours are like crossing the picket line in a straight. Exactly. You're just stabbing other animators in the back. Even if you have the best intention, you're not trying to be mean. You're not trying to put others down. That's what it's going to come across as. And that's what's going to really hurt the entire production. And this goes for animators, for renderer artists, for anyone working in the pipeline of animation or film in general. No ghost hours ever. They are one of the worst things that can damage an entire studio and pipeline. Tell my boss with Tail that I shouldn't do overtime. Yeah, unfortunately, AM assignments and school assignments don't fall into that. That's a whole other category, which you still want the work-life balance, but sometimes you have to do overtime there because it's a learning process. It's not a paid process. So yeah, that's a whole other discussion. Ghost hours. I like that term. This happens in a lot of fields. I experienced it in the software development field. Yeah, I experienced it as a baker, where as a baker, for anyone who doesn't know, before I was an animator, Cameron and I were bakers. We were the head bakers at a small bakery, which was a lot of fun. We used to do a lot of breads and cookies and whatnot, cakes. It was so good. I miss baking a lot. But there was a time when the owner of the bakery came up to us and asked us, like, hey, you're baking all night. It's taking you 10 hours because we would work from midnight to 10 o'clock in the morning. Now I'm baking constraints. I'm so happy that Maya has some baking in it. But typically we would work from midnight to 10 o'clock in the morning. So that way all the bread would be fresh in the morning. Everyone would come in and have all of their breakfast goodies and whatnot, or get cookies for the day, whatnot. And they went, hey, you're working from midnight to 10 o'clock. That's great. By the way, can you do the exact same amount of work in 6 hours? And it's like, no, because bread takes a certain amount of time to bake. There's only so many loaves you can fit in an oven, and you need like so many loaves in the day. It's going to take this amount of time. And they went, oh, okay. But essentially they were expecting us to just take 6 hours of pay for 10 hours of work, or try to scrunch down this time that we just couldn't do. So our options were either, like, if we were to do the bad options, either go, sure, we can do that and still work for 10 hours, ghost hours, very bad. We could have tried to rush the production, which could potentially work, but then it's going to be a detriment to the bread. So instead we just had a conversation with them. And this is what you would want to do in a studio. As much as you can, have a conversation, go, okay, we can maybe do that, but here is what we're going to have to sacrifice for it. So if like the heads of a studio go, hey, we want all of your animators to finish this project, but in half the time. As a supervisor, as a director, I would go to the studio heads and go, okay, we can do that, but it's going to mean we're going to have less quality, we're going to have less polish, we're going to probably have to have a shorter film overall, and this and this and this and this and this. If you're okay with all of these negatives, we can do it in that time. That is a good studio head. That is a good director, a good supervisor. They will fight for you and make sure that even though your deadline might be shorter, that you're not expected to meet the exact same quality. That's not fair. So, you want to, it's the three pillars: speed, price, and quality. You cannot have all three. You're going to have to sacrifice something in there. And that is a great way to put it. And so, this is a weird tangent. I was not expecting to go on any of this, least of all for like half an hour, but hopefully it's helpful. I know this is a very, like, not many people talk about it, but it's a very important thing to keep in mind.